In this video, I'm going to walk through a couple more of example problems so that hopefully you guys can get the hang of this and do a couple problems I'm going to assign on your own. So first, let's take a look at this first problem. So I'm going to put it up here, that way we can all see it. And let's make that a little prettier. Okay, so our goal for this one is to write an application that converts miles into kilometers, and then it tells us very helpfully that 1 mile equals 1.60935 kilometers. So we need to read the miles value from the user as a floating point value. That's another little helpful hint that it's given us. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is, let's see, make sure you don't have that extra space there, otherwise it doesn't recognize that that's the end of the comment. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to make a file for this. So let's call this Miles2Kilometers. And there we go. Control S to save it. And I'm just going to save it here. I've got a nice little folder already set up. Hit save. And it already made the file over here automatically for us, so we're all good. So now what we want to do is make our main method and all of our code is going to go inside of here. So now that we've got our skeleton, let's go and just create a little template of the steps that we need to do, and we can fill them out. So what we need to do first is collect input from the user, and that's going to be miles. They're going to tell us how many miles they have, and then what are we going to do with that? We're going to output kilometers. So in between, we're going to convert miles to kilometers. So these are the 3 steps that we have to do in order to solve this problem. So let's go ahead and get that input. So we're going to make a scanner. Don't forget you have to import it. See, java.util.scanner. Don't forget your semicolon. Let's go ahead and you have to hit compile first, and that's gonna, oops, we got an error. I forgot a semicolon. So that's what this is gonna be helpful for. It's gonna highlight where you had your problem. So here we go. Local variable scan is never read. All right, awesome. Because we're not using it, but we should be able to run this no problem. Cool, no errors. And this is a program called Dr. Java, and I'll help you guys get it all set up on your laptops next week. So you can still use that online editor that we were talking about before. So now that we have our scanner, let's go ahead and get our miles value. We'll call it miles, and it's going to be scan dot next double. So recall that it says that we want to take the input as a floating point value. So that's a number that's going to have a decimal point in it, and that's when we use double. So miles is going to be of type double. So now we've got this, we're good. Now we're going to have another double, so it's going to have another decimal point. And this thing's going to be called kilometers. And what's kilometers going to equal? Well, it's going to be the number of miles that we have times that conversion that it gave us in the question. So 1.60935. So that would give us our kilometers. Now we just need to output it, system.out.println. And let's go ahead and make this pretty. So we're going to go kilometers put your space here so you have proper concatenation, plus the variable kilometers. And let's add a prompt up here so the user knows what we're asking them for. So just a print, not a print line, miles. Don't forget your semicolons. So we take the input, we convert the miles into kilometers, we save that value, and then we output it. So let's give this a try. Let's compile it. Let's save it first. Okay, no compilation errors. Then we'll run it. Miles. So let's say 1 mile, because it's going to be pretty easy to test. 1.60935. That's exactly what we expected. So you can click on this. Let's do run miles to, capital M, miles to kilometers. And that's if you just want to use the terminal. You could just hit run up here again if you wanted to. And let's try 10. All right, it looks like it's working. So that's how you would solve this problem. Okay, let's do one more. So let me set up a multi-line comment up here, and let me grab the problem. Let's make this a little bit prettier. Okay. So what we need to do is write an application that determines the value of coins in a jar and prints the total in dollars and cents. Read integer values that represent the number of quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. Use a currency formatter to print the output. Okay. Once again, we got an extra space there. All right, so first things first, we're going to make a class. Let's call it MoneyCounter. So we're just going to name it based on what it does. And we need our main method, public static void main string args. All right, beautiful. So as always, let's look at the different parts of this problem. What do we need to do? So it's going to determine the value of coins in a jar, and it's going to print the total in dollars and cents. And it says we're reading in the integer values that represent the numbers of the quarters, the dimes, the nickels, and the pennies. So that sounds like to me that we're going to get input from the user. And when it says print the total in dollars and cents, that sounds like output. Output the total amount in dollars and cents. So let's say collect coin amount input from the user. And then we're going to have to do some sort of counting here, or some sort of math. We'll get to that in a second. So we're going to count up the coins. We're going to know how many of each type we have. Then we're going to have to somehow take all of those different coin values and put them together so that we know exactly how much money we have in total. And then once we have that, so actually let's call this calculating the total. So we're going to calculate the total value of the coins that we have, and then we're going to output that value back to the user. And when it says use this currency formatter, let's assume that all we need to do is put a $ sign at the front, and we need to have a decimal point with two digits after it. So first things first, let's make the scanner. Scanner scan equals new scanner. System.in semicolon. Got to import it. Import java.util.scanner semicolon. We need a prompt, so let's do system.out.println, or just print, because we don't want a new line. So print how many pennies are in the jar? Let's go ahead and copy this. Well, let's do the next line, then we'll copy it. So I'm going to put a space here so we keep ourselves organized. So you can't have a fraction of a penny. When you're talking about coins, you can only have a whole number. So just like it says up here, we're going to read in integer values. So int pennies equals scan dot next int. Now let's copy this whole thing. Let's copy paste modify. So next is nickels. Do it again. How many dimes? And one more time. How many quarters? Okay, let's double check that that was all of them. Quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. Sweet, so we got all 4 of those right here. And we've saved them into variables, so we have all of those. So now let's figure out the totals. So to do that, first let's calculate the totals per coin type. So how much do we have in pennies, for example? So now this could be a fractional value. So let's go ahead and do double. And we're going to call this penny total. So it's the total amount of money that we have in pennies. So you take the number of pennies and you multiply that by what a penny is worth. And it's worth $0.01, right? Just 1 penny. Double nickel total equals the number of nickels that we have times however much a nickel is worth, which is 5 cents. Double dime total equals how many dimes that we have times what a dime is worth, which is 10 cents. Last one, quarter total equals the number of quarters that we have times the worth of a quarter, which is 25 cents. So now we have how much money we have per coin type. So if we combine all of those together, we'll call it total, we get the total amount of money that's in the jar. The amount of money that we have in pennies, plus the amount of money that we have in nickels, plus the amount of money we have in dimes, plus the amount of money that we have in quarters, equals the total amount of money. So the last thing is we need to tell the user, so system.out.println, wow, you have, put our space there, and actually let's put a $sign. You have total plus a space in the jar. Semicolon, semicolon. Let's double check everything looks okay. Yep. Let's save it. We're going to call it MoneyCounter and save. It's over here. Compile it. No errors. Let's run it. How many pennies are in the jar? We have 5 pennies. How many nickels? 1 nickel. 2 dimes. And 2 quarters. So we have 80 cents in the jar. Let's see. 5, 10, that's 60. Ooh. 5, 10, 60, 70, 80. Okay. Yep, we're good. That worked. And see how we don't have that extra bit there. let's see if we can't fix that. Let's see. Sometimes you need to Google how to do things like this. That's what I'm doing right now, because this isn't something you have to typically do. Let's see. Looks like there might be something called set precision, so let's try that. Total.set precision to 2. Let's see. Ooh. Cannot invoke a primitive type double. Yeah, sometimes the internet lies. Well, I was hoping we wouldn't have to do this, but we can use something called string formatting. And yeah, that's going to look a little something like this. So we get rid of this, get rid of the concatenation stuff. You're going to put a % in here, point to F, and that says we want 2 decimals of precision after the decimal point, and F stands for floating point number. And then after this, we'll actually put what we want. Let's see if that works. Pilot. It's not acceptable arguments. You have to do print F if we're going to do this. Alright, let's try it. So 5 pennies, 1 nickel, 2 dimes, 2 quarters. Alright, so you see now we have that 0. So don't worry too much about this string formatting. That's not something you're really going to use very often. But for the sake of this problem, it was something we had to do. So just remember, if you don't know how to do something like that, the internet can be a helpful resource. One more thing, we should probably add a new line so it looks a little better. Let me show you why we did that. So right here, it was prompting us right after that last input. Ideally, we want the prompter arrow to be down here. So if we run this again, you'll see that's what happens. See, now we're down here. So that is how we would solve this problem. So I'll post probably 2 problems. One, I'm not going to make you do any sort of string formatting, so don't worry about that. And these 2 problems should look pretty similar to ones that we've done before, so I think you should be well on your way to being able to solve them.